You ever notice how those first few moments after you wake up, kind of set the tone for your whole day?
Absolutely. I mean, if you start your morning feeling confident and strong and you believe in yourself, you're going to approach the rest of the day with a whole different energy.
Totally. It's like that old saying, win the morning, win the day, or something like that. And that's exactly what this deep dive is all about today.
Right on.
We're exploring a fascinating document called Start Your Day Right, which really digs into how you can consciously shape those first thoughts of yours to create a ripple effect of positivity throughout your day.
It's all about harnessing the power of those initial moments, for sure.
Exactly. So, if you're ready to unlock that power, we're going to dive into the world of morning affirmations and explore their impact on boosting your confidence and setting yourself up for success, however you personally define that word. So we'll cover a lot of ground, like what these affirmations actually are, why your brain seems to really love them in the morning, what the science says about their effectiveness, practical tips to get you started, loads of examples geared toward building confidence and achieving success, and even how to smoothly integrate this whole practice into your existing routine.
Sounds like a plan.
Have you ever considered, by the way, how those very first thoughts that pop into your head each day might be subtly or maybe not so subtly shaping your reality?
It's a fascinating thought, isn't it?
It is. Well, that's exactly what we're here to unpack. Let's see if we can uncover how this seemingly simple practice can actually make a real tangible difference in your life.
Let's do it.
So, first things first, what are affirmations anyway?
Well, the document describes them as short, positive statements. Kind of like mental tools that you can use to challenge those pesky negative thoughts and reinforce more positive beliefs, the ones that help you grow and feel good.
So instead of letting those "I can't do this" thoughts spiral, you're consciously replacing them with something more empowering.
That's the idea, yeah. The document actually gives some great examples like, I'm confident in my abilities, I am capable of achieving my goals, I deserve success and happiness.
Right, those are super direct and positive. But the document also seems to stress that it's not just about repeating the words, right? There's got to be some intention behind them, some real belief for them to really stick.
Absolutely. It's not just about going through the motions. You have to really feel it for it to truly work its magic.
Makes sense. Now, why is the morning such a prime time for this kind of mental practice?
Well, think about it. When you first wake up, your mind's in this kind of transitional state. You're emerging from sleep. And the document says that your mind's often more open and receptive during that time.
So like that groggy, just woke up feeling is actually an advantage here.
In a way, yes. It's like your subconscious mind, that deeper part of you, is a little less guarded, more accessible to these positive suggestions.
Interesting. Okay, so assuming you can manage to utter a few coherent sentences before your first cup of coffee, what are the actual benefits of using affirmations in the morning? What can people expect?
Well, the document lays out some pretty compelling advantages. First off, it sets a positive tone for the entire day. It's like choosing a really upbeat playlist to get you going. Instead of waking up to that same old mental chatter, you're starting with an injection of positivity.
I like that analogy. It's about setting the right vibe from the get-go. What else?
It also helps you laser focus your mental energy on your goals. Instead of getting sidetracked by emails or whatever's on your to-do list, you're starting by reminding yourself what truly matters, what you're working towards.
That's huge in today's world with all the distractions and things pulling us in different directions.
Totally. It helps you stay on track with your own priorities.
Yeah.
And then you've got the whole resilience thing.
Resilience, huh?
Yeah. The document describes morning affirmations as a way to build resilience against stress and negativity. By consistently reinforcing these positive beliefs, you're essentially building up your mental armor. You're better equipped to handle whatever challenges the day might throw your way.
I love that. Like a mental shield against all the crap that life can sometimes throw at you.
Exactly. And of course, it helps strengthen your confidence. You're starting your day by reminding yourself of your capabilities, your worthiness, your ability to handle things.
So it's not just about feeling good, it's about feeling capable and equipped to tackle whatever comes your way.
That's the goal.
Now, I know some people might be thinking, okay, this all sounds a bit too good to be true. Is there actually any scientific evidence to back this up? What does the research say about affirmations?
That's a great question, and the document actually delves into the science behind it all. It points to research in neuroscience, positive psychology, and even cognitive behavioral therapy.
Wow, so it's not just some feel-good, self-help concept. There's actual research to support it.
Yes, and what's really cool is that studies have shown that affirmations can actually activate the reward centers in your brain.
Really? So it's like giving your brain a little hit of dopamine when you affirm something positive about yourself.
You got it, and that creates this positive feedback loop, reinforcing those beliefs even more. The document also mentions that affirmations can help reduce stress by lowering cortisol levels, that stress hormone that can wreak havoc on your body and mind.
So it's not just good for your mental state, it could actually be benefiting your physical health too.
Precisely. And then there's the whole thing about neural pathways. The document talks about how affirmations strengthen the connections in your brain that are linked to self-worth and motivation.
So it's like building stronger mental highways that lead to a more positive self-image and that drive to achieve your goals.
Perfect analogy. You're literally rewiring your brain for greater confidence and success.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. It even mentions MRI studies. What did those show?
Yeah, the document points out that MRI scans have actually shown that when people engage in self-affirmation, it activates a part of the brain called the ventromedial prefrontal cortex.
Okay, that's a mouthful. What does that part of the brain do?
It's basically involved in how you value things in a positive way and how you process information about yourself. So when you affirm something positive, you're actually seeing increased activity in the part of your brain that deals with self-esteem and positive self-regard.
So it's not just a mental exercise, it has a real measurable effect on your brain.
That's right.
Okay, so let's say you're sold on the why. Now, how do you actually do it? What are some effective ways to use morning affirmations? Where do you even begin?
The document outlines some pretty straightforward steps. First and foremost, you got to choose affirmations that resonate with you emotionally. These shouldn't be just random generic statements. They should feel meaningful and relevant to your personal goals and aspirations.
Right, so if you're not feeling it, it's probably not going to work.
Exactly. You have to connect with them on a deeper level.
Yeah.
And the document also stresses the importance of saying your affirmations out loud. When you speak, you engage more of your senses, you hear yourself, you're physically articulating the words, so it just has a much deeper impact.
So it's not enough to just think them in your head?
It's definitely more powerful when you say them out loud. And here's an interesting tip. Try using a mirror.
A mirror.
Yeah, looking yourself in the eye while you say your affirmations can add a whole other level of intensity and authenticity. It's a way to really own those statements and connect with yourself on a deeper level.
I can see how that would amplify the message, though it might feel a little awkward at first.
It might feel strange initially, but the more you do it, the more natural it becomes.
Makes sense. What else?
Consistency is absolutely key. The document emphasizes repeating your affirmations every single morning. Think of it like a mental workout. You have to show up regularly to see results.
Okay, so no skipping affirmation days. It's got to be a daily habit.
Exactly. And finally, don't just recite them in a monotone. Really try to feel the emotion behind the words.
Well, it's about embodying the feeling, not just going through the motions.
You got it. If you're saying, I am confident, really try to tap into that feeling of confidence, even if it's just a glimmer at first.
Fake it till you make it, kind of.
In a way, yeah. You're essentially training your mind to believe it.
Interesting. So to sum it up, the document suggests a pretty simple format. You find a comfortable, quiet spot, maybe sit or stand in a way that feels good, take a deep breath to center yourself, and then say maybe 5 to 10 affirmations out loud, slowly and with feeling.
That's a great starting point, yeah.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about affirmations in general. Let's get a bit more specific. The document really emphasizes the importance of confidence. Why is that such a crucial ingredient for success in your view?
Well, I think a lot of people, maybe even you, tend to think of confidence as being kind of loud or arrogant. But true confidence is much quieter than that. It's about that deep inner belief in yourself, your abilities, your worth. It's an inner strength, not an outward show.
Right, it's not about bragging or putting others down. It's about trusting yourself.
Exactly. And that's what allows you to go after what you want in life, to take risks, to overcome challenges, to achieve your goals.
And how do morning affirmations specifically help build that kind of confidence?
In a few key ways. First, they can help you silence that inner critic, that voice that tells you you're not good enough, smart enough, or whatever enough.
Ugh, that inner critic can be so annoying, like a constant stream of negativity.
It can be, but affirmations help you counter those thoughts with more positive, empowering ones. They also help you overcome fear and doubt by reminding yourself of your capabilities and past successes.
It's like you're actively replacing those limiting beliefs with ones that support your growth.
Exactly. And by consistently affirming your worthiness and abilities, you're more likely to speak up for yourself, to act with courage, to go after what you really want.
So it's not just about feeling confident, it's about acting confidently.
Absolutely. Confidence leads to action, which then leads to results, which then reinforces your confidence even more. It's a positive cycle.
And the document makes it clear that confidence isn't some fixed trait, right? It's something you can develop and strengthen over time.
Exactly. Every time you repeat an affirmation with feeling, it's like doing a rep at the gym for your confidence muscles. You're building strength and resilience.
Love that analogy. So we've got confidence covered. Now let's talk about success. The document also dives into that, right?
It does, and it makes a really important point about success being a personal thing. What constitutes success for one person might be completely different for someone else.
Totally. There's no one-size-fits-all definition. It could be financial abundance, a fulfilling career, strong relationships, making a difference in the world, or just living a life that feels aligned with your values.
Exactly. And that's where affirmations can be so powerful. They help you define what success truly means for you, and then stay focused on achieving it.
So it's not about chasing some external standard of success, but about figuring out what truly matters to you and aligning your actions with that.
Precisely. Affirmations act as those daily reminders, keeping you on track with your own unique definition of success.
That's so important, especially in today's world where we're bombarded with messages about what we should be striving for.
It's about tuning out that noise and really connecting with your own inner compass.
Okay, I'm ready to hear some specific examples. The document provides a whole bunch of affirmations, both for confidence and for success. What are some of your favorites?
Well, let's start with confidence. There's one that I really like. I am confident and courageous. It's simple, but it sets a powerful intention.
It's like a bold statement of self-belief.
It is. And then there's, I trust myself to make the right decisions. That one's really helpful for those times when you're feeling unsure or second-guessing yourself.
Oh, I need that one in my life for sure.
It's a good one. Another one that I find really empowering is, I release all self-doubt. It's like actively choosing to let go of those limiting beliefs.
It's like giving yourself permission to believe in your potential.
Exactly. And then there are two that are just really grounding. I am enough, and my inner strength guides me. They remind you of your inherent worth and your ability to handle whatever comes your way.
Those are beautiful. They speak to that deep inner knowing that we all have. Okay, what about some affirmations for success? What resonates with you there?
There's one that's great for setting a positive expectation. I am successful in everything I do. It's about believing in your ability to achieve, no matter what you're tackling.
It's like setting yourself up for success from the start.
It is. And then there's, I attract opportunities and abundance. It's about opening yourself up to possibilities and believing that good things are coming your way.
It's like shifting your mindset from scarcity to abundance.
Exactly. Another one that I find really motivating is, my goals are within reach. It helps you maintain that sense of possibility and keep pushing forward, even when things get tough.
It's a reminder that you're capable of achieving what you set your mind to.
Yes. And I love this one. I am the architect of my destiny. It emphasizes your own agency and your ability to create the life you want.
It's about taking ownership of your path, rather than feeling like you're at the mercy of circumstances.
Exactly. And finally, I wake up with purpose and energy. It sets a really positive and proactive tone for your whole day.
It's like choosing to approach your day with intention and enthusiasm rather than just going through the motions.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got a great list of affirmations to work with. The document also mentions that you can boost their effectiveness by combining them with other practices. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes. It specifically mentions visualization and meditation as being super helpful. With visualization, you basically create a mental movie of yourself already achieving your goals while you're repeating your affirmations.
So it's about not just saying the words, but really seeing and feeling yourself living that success.
Exactly. It makes it all the more real and tangible. And meditation helps to quiet your mind and create a space of calm and focused intention.
It's like creating that fertile ground in your mind for those affirmations to really take root.
Precisely. The document also suggests using calming music or nature sounds to enhance the experience.
It's all about creating a relaxing and supportive environment for this practice.
Right. And if you want to take it even further, you can combine your affirmations with deep breathing or gentle yoga.
So it's about creating a mind-body connection, using both mental and physical practices to reinforce those positive beliefs.
That's the idea.
Now, I know what you're thinking. This all sounds amazing, but how do I fit it into my already crazy morning routine? What does the document suggest for creating a manageable practice?
It actually provides a really simple 15-minute morning routine that integrates all these elements. It suggests starting with 2 minutes of deep breathing to center yourself, then 5 minutes of affirmations, maybe choose 10 or 15, that really speak to you.
Okay, that sounds doable.
Right? Then you've got 3 minutes of visualization, really bringing those goals to life in your mind. And finally, 5 minutes of journaling or gratitude practice.
So you're starting your day with intention, focus, and appreciation.
Exactly. And the document stresses that you can totally personalize this routine. The key is consistency, not perfection.
So even if you only have 5 minutes, it's better to do a little bit consistently than a lot sporadically.
That's the key takeaway.
Okay, so we covered a lot of ground. But does this stuff actually work? Does the document share any real-life examples of how morning affirmations have changed people's lives?
It does. While it doesn't get into specific individual stories, it does talk about how tons of people from all walks of life have reported experiencing significant benefits from this practice.
Really? What kinds of benefits are we talking about here?
Well, a lot of people report feeling less anxious and more focused throughout the day.
That makes sense, given what we talked about with stress reduction and mental clarity.
Right. And then there are people who have experienced career breakthroughs, stronger relationships, and just a greater sense of purpose and motivation in their lives.
So it's not just about feeling good, it's about seeing tangible results in different areas of your life.
That's what the document emphasizes.
Yeah.
It's about creating real positive change.
That's pretty inspiring. But are there any common mistakes people make when they're first starting out with affirmations? Things to watch out for?
Definitely. The document highlights a few. One of the biggest ones is reciting affirmations without any emotion. You have to really feel them, believe them, for them to work their magic.
It's about embodying the feeling, not just saying the words.
Exactly. Another mistake is trying to do too much too soon. It's better to focus on a few key affirmations that resonate with you deeply rather than overwhelming yourself with a ton of them.
So quality over quantity.
Absolutely. And then there's the issue of inconsistency. You can't just do affirmations every now and then and expect to see lasting results. It's got to be a daily habit.
Right. It's like any other practice. Consistency is key.
And the document also cautions against using affirmations that you simply don't believe. If you're affirming something that feels completely out of reach, it's probably not going to have much impact.
You need to start with something that feels at least somewhat achievable and then gradually work your way up.
That's a good approach. And finally, remember that affirmations are most effective when they're paired with action.
Right. You can't just affirm your way to success without actually doing anything.
It's about creating that positive mental framework that supports your efforts and fuels your motivation to take action.
It's like affirmations provide the wind in your sails, but you still need to steer the ship.
Great analogy.
Now, besides affirmations, does the document recommend any other morning practices that can help boost confidence and success?
Yes. It suggests a few other things that can really complement your affirmation practice. Journaling is a great one. It helps you process your thoughts and feelings, track your progress, and gain greater self-awareness.
Journaling is definitely a powerful tool for self-discovery.
It is. The document also recommends incorporating some kind of movement into your morning, whether it's stretching, yoga, or a brisk walk.
It's all about getting the body moving and the energy flowing.
Right. And listening to motivational audio or podcasts can be another great way to start your day on a positive note.
It's like surrounding yourself with positive messages and inspiration.
Exactly. And then there are a few other things it mentions, like planning your top 3 goals for the day, practicing gratitude, and reading something inspiring or educational.
So it's about creating a holistic morning routine that sets you up for success in all areas of your life.
Absolutely.
Now, the document also talks about the importance of our inner dialogue, that constant stream of self-talk that's happening in our minds. How does that tie into affirmations?
The document makes a really important point. Your inner voice has a huge impact on your outer reality. If you're constantly putting yourself down or focusing on the negative, it's going to be really hard to achieve your goals, even if you're using affirmations.
So even if you're affirming positive things, those negative thoughts can sabotage your efforts.
They can. That's why it's so important to become aware of your self-talk and to consciously choose to shift it to a more positive and supportive place.
Can you give us an example of what that might look like in practice?
Sure. Let's say you're about to take on a new challenge, and that inner voice starts whispering, "You're going to fail, you're not good enough." Instead of letting that thought take over, you can consciously choose to replace it with an affirmation like, "I am capable of handling this. I am learning and growing.
So it's about catching those negative thoughts and flipping them on their head, replacing them with more empowering beliefs.
Exactly. It takes practice, but it's a powerful way to change your mindset and your results.
Now, how do you track your progress with affirmations? Does the document offer any tips?
It does. It suggests using a daily checklist or a journal to note the affirmations you're using, as well as your mood and energy levels before and after your practice. You can also track your progress towards your bigger goals.
So it's about paying attention to how you're feeling and whether your actions are aligned with your affirmations.
Right. Tracking your progress helps you stay accountable and motivated. It also allows you to see the positive changes you're making over time.
It's like giving yourself that tangible evidence that your efforts are paying off.
Exactly.
What about journaling? Are there any specific journal prompts that you'd recommend for people who are using affirmations?
The document has some great ones. Here are a few. What am I most proud of accomplishing today? What is one thing I genuinely appreciate about myself? What specific success am I actively working toward right now? What is one limiting belief I can let go of today? And how will I choose to show up confidently in the world today?
Those are really powerful questions. They really encourage reflection and intention setting.
They do. And the document also mentions a cool idea, creating personalized affirmation cards.
Affirmation cards, what are those?
You can basically write your affirmations on index cards or use a notes app on your phone or tablet. It's a great way to keep your affirmations fresh and engaging. You can shuffle them and choose a few each day, or you can organize them by themes like confidence, success, gratitude, or self-love.
So it's like a personalized deck of cards that you can use to tailor your practice to your specific needs and goals.
That's the idea. It's about making the practice your own.
So to wrap it all up, it sounds like starting your day with purpose, specifically through the consistent and mindful use of morning affirmations, can be a really powerful way to build confidence and achieve success, however you define it.
That's the key takeaway, for sure. It's about taking those first few moments of your day to shape your mindset and set a positive trajectory for everything that follows.
And remember, even a few minutes each day can make a huge difference.
Every new day is a fresh start.
On that note, here's a final thought for you to ponder as you go about your day. If you could choose one core belief about yourself, one that, if you truly believed it, could make the biggest positive impact on your life, what would it be? And how would you affirm that belief every single morning?
That's a powerful question.
It is. And that's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
It's been a pleasure. All right, so you're back with us for another deep dive. And, today we're really going to tackle something that's, I think, pretty woven into all of our lives these days.
Yeah.
The impact of social media on human behavior. And it really is. I mean, just thinking about it, it's multifaceted. There's so many layers to this. And
yeah, it's a huge topic.
It is.
And it's something that affects us every single day.
It does, even if we don't realize it right. And that's kind of part of what we want to dig into today.
Absolutely.
We've got a really great article that we're going to be using as kind of the springboard for this conversation today. And it's actually designed for people who are learning English as a second language. So it's really interesting because not only does it analyze this whole topic of social media and human behavior, but it's also
the language to talk about.
Exactly. It's got vocab.
Yeah.
It's got some phrases that are really useful.
And real world examples
Exactly.
of how people are using the language.
Super practical.
We're going to discuss this. Yeah.
So we're going to be pulling from that today, but we're going to be really kind of, I think, going beyond just like the words themselves and really thinking about what are the core insights here about how social media shapes us.
How it shapes the way we behave.
Right. And sometimes it's subtle, but sometimes, let's face it, it's not.
No, it's not. Yeah. Sometimes it's pretty blatant.
It's pretty in your face.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I wanted to start by asking you, like, as you're listening, have you ever just stopped to think about how these platforms really influence your daily life, like how they kind of nudge you in certain directions or maybe even shove you?
Yeah, it's a great question to start with. And I think before we can even understand the impact of social media on human behavior, we kind of need to think about the baseline,
Right.
What is human behavior to begin with?
Yeah.
Traditionally, we understand human behavior as kind of all of our actions and mannerisms and how we respond to different stimuli and interactions in our environment, Think about it, like how your culture shapes how you behave,
Absolutely.
how your past experiences, influence how you react to certain things.
Yes.
Your emotions play a huge role.
Yeah.
And of course, all the social influences around you.
All the time.
All the time, right?
So how does that then translate to the online world?
Right. So when we think about the online world and human behavior, we kind of have to add some new layers to it, you know?
Yeah.
It's about how we choose to present ourselves online.
Okay.
You know, that digital persona we cultivate.
Right.
It's about all the different ways we interact with others through comments and likes and shares and direct messages. And perhaps most importantly, it's about how the massive amount of content that we consume actually shapes our mood,
Yeah.
our thoughts, and even the choices we make in our lives.
Okay, so there's that kind of like input and output almost.
Right, exactly.
Like how it's coming at us and then how we're putting ourselves out there.
Yeah.
And both of those things are sort of
They're in constant.
intertwined and influencing us.
Yeah, a constant loop.
So the article gives us some really basic vocabulary right off the bat.
Yeah, it does.
And it's useful to sort of, I think, start with those, those foundational terms. So
Yeah.
we're talking about things like stimuli. So stimuli are things that trigger a reaction. And the example it gives is bright colors in an advertisement act.
Yeah.
That's stimuli to grab your attention.
Yeah.
But when we think about social media, those stimuli could be
Oh, they could be anything.
like so many things. It could be
You know, a picture, a headline, you know, something your friend posted about,
like an event they went to.
their vacation photo.
Anything, right?
Yeah.
And then that kind of like sparks a reaction in us, whether it's to
You're right.
click on it or leave a comment or just even to feel something different. You know?
Exactly. A shift in your mood, even.
Yeah. Like, oh, I wish I was there, or
Yeah. Or I'm so happy for them.
I'm so jealous, right?
Exactly.
And then there's the word mannerism. So mannerism is basically just a way of behaving that's kind of typical for you. And it's interesting to think about like our online mannerisms.
Yeah.
You know, how we might,
How we present ourselves.
yeah, and like what we do online versus what we might do in person,
Totally.
right? Do they match up or are they different?
Right. Are you more bold online or are you more, you
Right.
know, shy and reserved?
Or maybe you use different emojis, or
Yeah, exactly.
you abbreviate things more in your writing style.
Right. Right.
And then there's the word perception,
yeah.
which is just how something is understood or interpreted. And the article brings up a really interesting point that social media can actually distort our perception of what is real
Yeah.
or normal. You know, when you think about all those like perfectly filtered vacation photos,
Right.
or the really positive life updates that people are constantly sharing.
It's like everyone's living their best life all the time.
Yeah, it's like, is this real life, or is this
Right.
a very curated,
A very specific version of reality.
right? Yeah. And then the last kind of like foundational vocab word is influence, which we all know what influence means. It's the ability to have an effect on someone or something.
Right.
And the article makes the point that online personalities or influencers have a huge influence, particularly on younger people.
Especially on younger people.
And it's like, okay, so we've got these kind of like four pieces,
Yeah.
stimuli, mannerism, perception, influence, and they're all
They're all intertwined.
they're all feeding into each other.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to like really unpack as we go deeper into this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the article then introduces this really interesting conversation between two people,
Right.
Alex and Mia. And Alex starts out by asking, like, do you think people are really themselves online? And Mia's response, I think, is really interesting. She's
Yeah.
like, not always. A lot of people just create like a curated version of their life.
Yeah, just the highlights.
Yeah. And Alex is like, yeah, I feel that pressure
Yeah.
to only show the good moments.
Right.
And I feel like that's something that we can all probably relate to, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I know I can.
Like, have you ever felt like that where you're like, okay, I'm only going to share the stuff that makes me look good, or, you know,
Yeah, for sure. Or like you're trying to
have such a great time.
create a certain image of yourself that
Yeah.
you want people to see.
And then Mia brings up this term impression management,
Right.
which is basically like how we try to control how other people see us.
It's like we're all putting on a performance.
It's a performance.
In a way.
And social media is just like this stage.
Absolutely. It's a global stage.
Yeah, where you can perform for anyone who wants to watch.
Exactly.
And Mia makes a really important point that this whole like carefully constructed presentation,
Yeah.
you know, this pressure to always be highlighting the positive can actually affect your self-esteem in the long run.
Right.
Because if you're always comparing your like normal everyday life
Yeah, to everyone else's highlight reel.
to everyone else's highlight reel, yeah, you're going to start to feel bad about yourself.
For sure, yeah. So this leads really nicely into like the next part of the article, which is about the psychological effects of social media. And it starts by talking about this idea of social comparison, which is something that as humans we do naturally.
Right, we're social creatures.
Yeah, we're always comparing ourselves to other people.
It's how we figure out, where we stand.
Right. Are we doing okay?
Exactly.
Are we successful?
Yeah.
But social media kind of puts this like magnifying glass on it.
It does. It amplifies it.
And it's not even accurate information a lot of times, right?
Right, because what we're seeing is, like you're saying, the most polished, the most exciting, often completely unrealistic version of people's lives.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're comparing ourselves to something that's not even real.
Yeah, it sets up this really unfair comparison.
Yeah, so it's no wonder that a lot of people end up feeling like, envious or inadequate.
Right, and the article defines envy as this feeling of discontent or resentful longing for someone else's possessions or qualities.
Like, you're wishing you had what they had.
Yeah, exactly.
And it gives this really interesting example. It says, scrolling through travel photos triggered envy in her heart.
Oh, yeah. I've definitely been there.
Haven't we all?
Yeah, scrolling through Instagram and seeing everyone's amazing vacations.
Yeah, and you're like, I'm stuck here at work.
Yeah, stuck at home.
Right, and then that can lead to like this distorted sense of self-worth.
Right.
So distorted meaning like twisted out of shape or meaning.
Yeah, kind of warped, out of whack.
Out of whack.
Yeah.
And the example it gives is his view of success became distorted by influencers. So it's like we're getting this
unrealistic
idea of what it means to be successful.
Yeah, because what we see online isn't necessarily
a full picture
of what it takes to achieve that.
Yeah, and it could make us feel like we're just not measuring up.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
The article also talks about addictive behaviors, which I think is something that...
Oh, yeah, a lot of people can relate to.
Yeah, a lot of us would probably experience this in some way or another.
For sure.
And there's this little conversation between Liam and Sarah.
Right.
And they're talking about like just constantly checking their phone.
Yeah, Liam was saying he checks his phone like every 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's almost like involuntary.
Yeah, he's like, I can't even help it.
And Sarah brings up this concept of dopamine loops.
Right.
Which is really fascinating.
It is. It's kind of like the science behind why we get so hooked on social media.
So explain that a little bit more.
So dopamine is this neurotransmitter in our brain that's associated with pleasure and reward.
Okay.
And when we get those little notifications, those likes, those comments, those new followers, our brain releases a little bit of dopamine and it makes us feel good.
So it's like a reward.
It's a reward.
Yeah.
So we keep going back for more.
Exactly. And the thing is with social media, those rewards are unpredictable.
Right. You don't know when you're going to get them.
You don't know when you're going to get that next, that next comment.
So it kind of keeps us hooked.
It's like gambling almost.
It is. It's very similar to gambling.
Like a slot machine.
You don't win every time, but...
But you might.
You might.
Right.
Yeah.
So you just keep pulling that lever.
Exactly.
So have you ever caught yourself reaching for your phone?
Oh, all the time?
Without even really knowing why?
Yeah, I don't even know what I'm looking for.
Yeah, what am I doing?
But I just got to check. Yeah.
And then there's these other two things that the article talks about that I think are so relevant to how we live in the world today.
Yeah.
Which are echo chambers and polarization.
Yeah.
And the way the article defines an echo chamber, it says it's an environment where a person only encounters information or opinions that reflect and reinforce their own.
Right. So they're basically just surrounded by people who agree with you.
Yeah, and it gives this example. It says, living in an echo chamber can narrow your understanding of the world. And a big part of why this happens is because of the algorithms that these social media platforms use.
Right.
Which, they're designed to keep us engaged.
Yeah, to keep us scrolling.
But the way they do that is by showing us more of what we've already liked or interacted with in the past.
Right, so it creates this very personalized feed.
Right.
Where you're only seeing things that you already agree with.
Yeah, it's like a filter bubble.
A filter bubble, yeah.
And over time, that can lead to polarization.
Yeah.
Which the article defines as basically division into two sharply contrasting groups or opinions.
Right, like everything's becoming more extreme.
Yeah, it's like us versus them.
Yeah.
And the example it gives is political polarization is rising due to social media bubbles, which I think we see that playing out all the time.
We see it everywhere. Yeah.
Right. It's like people are just becoming more and more entrenched in their own beliefs
Right. And less willing to listen to opposing viewpoints.
Because they're not even seeing them.
They're not even seeing them, yeah.
So have you noticed that happening in your own social media feed?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's hard to avoid.
It is.
Yeah.
So the article then has this really helpful section called Vocabulary Booster.
Yeah.
Where it gives us some more advanced vocabulary that's related to all of this. And I think it's really useful to just kind of like,
yeah, let's look at some of those words.
look at these words and think about how they apply to our own lives. So the first one is ubiquity.
Ubiquity.
Which basically means being everywhere.
Yeah, it's like omnipresent.
Right.
Right.
And the example it gives is the ubiquity of smartphones means everyone is always connected. Yeah, and it's true. Right. Like, can you even remember a time before?
It's hard to imagine.
Before we were all just like constantly connected.
It's like, what did we even do?
I don't know.
Yeah.
And then there's pervasive.
Pervasive.
Which means spreading widely throughout an area or a group of people.
Yeah, like it's everywhere. You can't escape it.
Right. And the example it gives is social media's influence is so pervasive, it affects even offline behavior.
That's a really interesting point.
It is, right?
It's not just when we're online, it affects how we behave.
Yeah, it affects how we think.
Yeah.
How we interact with each other.
Total.
Even when we're not scrolling or posting or whatever.
All right. It's kind of seeped into everything.
It has.
Yeah.
The next word is exacerbate.
Exacerbate.
Which means to make something worse.
Right.
And the example it gives is negative comments can exacerbate feelings of insecurity.
Oh, yeah. That's definitely true.
And that's something that unfortunately we see a lot of online.
Yeah, cyberbullying.
Yeah, all kinds of like
trolling,
nasty
negativity.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we've already talked about authenticity.
Yeah, authenticity.
Just being real, being genuine.
Right, being true to yourself.
And the example it gives here is many users crave more authenticity from influencers.
Yeah, I think that's a trend we're seeing.
Yeah, I think people are kind of tired of the fake.
The fakeness?
Perfection.
Yeah.
They want something real.
They don't want to see the real person behind the curated image.
The curated image, right?
Yeah.
And then the last word is anonymity.
Anonymity.
Which is just the state of being anonymous, of not being known.
Right.
And the example it gives is anonymity online can lead to both freedom of expression and cyberbullying.
Which is interesting, right?
It's a double-edged sword.
A double-edged sword, yeah.
Because on the one hand, it can allow people to speak their minds.
Yeah.
Maybe in ways that they wouldn't feel comfortable doing if they were using their real name.
Right.
But it can also lead to some really harmful behavior.
Yeah. People feel like they can say anything because
there are no consequences.
They're hidden behind a screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to think about like all those words and just like where they show up in our own lives.
Yeah. How they apply to our own experiences online.
So the article then moves on to talking about some real world examples of how social media is impacting human behavior. And one of the first things it brings up is this so-called TikTok generation.
Right.
And, you know, this whole question of attention spans.
Yeah, it's a hot topic.
It is. And it mentions this study from 2023 that suggested that there's a link between frequently consuming short-form video content.
Yeah, like TikTok videos.
Yeah, like TikTok videos.
Yeah.
And having trouble focusing for longer periods of time.
Yeah, it's like our brains are getting used to these quick hits of information.
And just like switching.
Yeah, constantly switching.
And then when we have to sit down and focus on something.
Yeah, it's harder to...
It's hard.
Stay engaged.
It's hard.
Yeah.
And the article poses this question directly to the reader. It says, do you find it harder to focus?
Yeah.
After spending time scrolling through short videos?
It's a good question to ask yourself.
It is. And I think for me, the answer is yes.
Yeah. You too?
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes, definitely.
It depends.
Yeah.
But I've definitely noticed that, like...
It takes a while to kind of reset
my brain
after being on TikTok for a while. Yeah.
So another really interesting real-world example that the article brings up is cancel culture.
Oh, yeah, cancel culture.
So what is cancel culture?
Basically, cancel culture is this idea that if someone does something or says something that is deemed offensive or problematic, then they can be canceled.
Right.
Which basically means that people will stop supporting them.
Yeah, they'll boycott them.
They'll boycott them. They'll unfollow them.
Yeah.
They'll speak out against them online.
It's basically like public shaming.
Public shaming.
Taken to like nth degree.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the article defines boycott as to withdraw support or refuse to engage with something.
Right.
And then it defines public shaming as publicly humiliating someone
Often online.
Often online.
Yeah.
And this is something that we see happening all the time now.
All done, yeah.
Where it's become very common.
Like, people's careers can be ruined. Yeah, their reputations can be destroyed.
Overnight.
Yeah.
Because of something they said or did.
And sometimes it's deserved.
Right.
But sometimes it's not.
Right. And that's a whole other conversation.
That's a whole other...
Like, what are the ethics of this?
Yeah.
But it's just interesting to see how online behavior can have these real-world consequences.
Absolutely. It's a very real phenomenon. Yeah.
So the article also has this really thought-provoking section where it presents like a debate club scenario.
Right.
And the statement that they're debating is social media has done more harm than good to human behavior, which is like the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah, it's the big question.
Is it a net positive or a net negative?
Right.
And so it presents arguments from both sides.
Yeah.
So student A, who agrees with the statement,
Right.
brings up all these points about, the rise in anxiety and depression, the spread of misinformation, the potential for reduced attention spans, particularly in young people, all things we've already talked about.
All valid concern.
Yeah. But then student B, who disagrees, brings up these other points like social media helps to build global communities.
Yeah.
It can be used to raise awareness for good causes.
Absolutely.
And it allows for greater freedom of expression.
Yeah, you can connect with people from all over the world.
Right. And so it's like, okay, it's not all bad.
It's not all good. It's not all bad.
Right. It's nuanced.
It's nuanced, yeah.
It's complex.
It's complex.
And I think that's important to keep in mind as we're having these conversations.
Absolutely, yeah.
So the article ends by talking a little bit about...
About language.
Yeah, about how we talk about all of this.
Yeah.
And it specifically focuses on this idea of reported speech.
Right.
Which is basically how we convey what someone else has said.
Yeah.
And it gives some examples of how to transform direct speech into reported speech. So, for example, like if someone says social media makes me feel inadequate, then you could report that by saying she said that social media made her feel inadequate.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it also talks about how the verb tense often shifts.
Right.
Like it goes from present tense to past tense.
Yeah.
When you're reporting something that someone else has said. So it's just kind of like a little grammar lesson.
Yeah, it's helpful.
Tucked in there.
Especially for English language learners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it also highlights that things like how we communicate about these things.
Yeah.
It's not just our own thoughts and feelings.
To how we convey.
It's also like what other people have said or researched or,
exactly.
concluded about these topics.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's just revisit some of the key takeaways that the article summarizes for us.
Okay.
So it reminds us that social media really influences how we see ourselves and how we see other people.
Right. That whole idea of the curated self.
Yeah, the curated self.
Yeah.
It also has a real impact on our emotional and psychological well-being.
Absolutely.
We talked about social comparison. We talked about addictive behavior.
Yeah, the dopamine
loops, right?
Yeah.
And then it emphasizes how important it is to have this vocabulary that we've been talking about today.
Yeah, words like perception and stimulate.
Authenticity.
Vaporization.
Echo chamber.
Yeah. All these words help us to
really like unpack and understand.
Articulate what's happening.
Yeah, what's going on.
Yeah.
In a really nuanced way.
Yeah.
So as we're kind of like leaving this conversation, I want to leave you with one final thought.
Okay.
So thinking about everything we've just talked about, all the different ways that social media shapes us.
Yeah.
Is there one small change that you could make in your own digital habits to feel a little bit more in control?
Yeah.
And a little bit more connected to like what really matters to you?
That's a great question.
Yeah, this isn't about like quitting social media altogether.
Right.
It's about like, how can we navigate it?
More consciously.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that we're not just like being swept away by the current.
Right. Being more mindful.
Yeah, being more mindful about how we use it.
Absolutely.
I think that's a great place to end it.
Yeah, I think so too.
All right. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Hello and welcome to the Learn English Lab. I'm Mike and I'm so glad to have Sarah here with us today for a deep dive into a book all about supercharging your personal growth through your morning routine.
Hi, Mike. Excited to be here and dig into this topic. I think it's something a lot of people are looking for ways to improve their lives with.
For sure. And the idea at the heart of this book is pretty powerful, right? It's this idea that no matter what your life looks like right now, you've got the power within you to make some serious improvements. It really taps into that human desire we all have to grow and become better versions of ourselves.
Yeah, and so many people get stuck in that same old routine day after day.
Absolutely. So this book is all about breaking out of that rut. It argues that reaching crazy levels of success, happiness, health, and wealth, well, it's not just some pipe dream, it's totally doable. And the journey starts with, believe it or not, how you wake up. The author suggests that making small, conscious choices in your morning routine can help you actually become the kind of person who can achieve those big goals you have.
So it's like setting the tone for your whole day right from the start.
Yeah, exactly. And the book lays out three main arguments. First, it says that every single person is worthy and capable of achieving incredible things, like amazing health, wealth, happiness, love, and success. It's all there for the taking.
That's a really strong foundation to start with.
Totally. And the second argument builds on that by saying that if you really want to reach those goals, you can't just wish for them. You got to actively work on yourself every day. Personal development, that's the key. It has to be a consistent effort.
So it's like taking ownership of your own growth.
You got it. And the third big point the book makes is that your morning sets the stage for your entire day. If you have a focused and productive morning, chances are your whole day is going to be more focused and productive. And over time, that leads to a more successful and fulfilling life.
So it's almost like a domino effect. A good morning leads to a good day, which leads to a good life.
Spot on. The book even lists a bunch of potential benefits you could see, like less stress, being better at overcoming challenges, being healthier, getting more done, feeling more grateful, making more money, and even figuring out your life's purpose. And of course, living a life that's more aligned with your vision. It's a lot to unpack, but it's exciting stuff.
Those are some pretty compelling reasons to pay attention to your morning routine.
Right. Now, the book introduces this concept called the Life, SAVERS.
Yeah.
6 practices that are designed to help you, well, live an extraordinary life. It's a life that, statistically speaking, most people just don't get to experience.
Okay, Life, SAVERS. I like it. So tell me more about these practices.
We'll definitely get into those in more detail a little later. But first, let's talk about how the book wraps up. It ends with this 30-day life transformation challenge, which is all about helping you develop the right mindset and habits to achieve lasting success. And a big takeaway here is that who you're becoming, that's the most important thing when it comes to your quality of life now and in the future.
So it's like your internal growth is what drives everything else.
And to illustrate all this, the author shares his own story, which is pretty incredible. Back in 1999, he was in a really bad car accident. Clinically dead for 6 minutes and then 6 days in a coma. He had 11 broken bones, brain damage, and the doctors told him he might never walk again.
Wow, that's a life-changing experience.
It really is. But get this, in the year 2000, despite all that, he had his best sales year ever, ending up number 6 in the entire company. Talk about resilience and determination, right?
That's amazing. It shows you the power of the human spirit, for sure.
Absolutely. So by 2001, he started sharing his story as a motivational speaker, inspiring others with his journey. It's interesting, he was initially intimidated by the idea of writing a whole book, but he found a lot of success in speaking and coaching.
Yeah, it shows you how everyone has different strengths and ways of connecting with people.
Totally. So fast forward to February 2005, and he has this epiphany at a Cutco conference. He realized that even though he'd accomplished a lot, he still wasn't living up to his full potential. So he made a commitment to really go for it for another year.
Those moments of self-reflection can be so powerful, can't they?
They really can. But life has a way of throwing curveballs. And in 2007, he hit a major financial roadblock. A lot of debt, feeling hopeless. It was a tough time. It reminds you that success isn't always a straight line upwards.
Yeah, it's more like a winding path with ups and downs.
Exactly. But then during a run, something clicked. He had this big aha moment about the role of personal development in achieving success. He remembered this quote, "Your level of success will rarely exceed your level of personal development." It was a real game changer for him.
That quote is so powerful. It really gets to the heart of what this book is all about.
For sure. And at first, he tried incorporating these personal development practices into his evenings, but he found that mornings worked much better for him. There's something about that quiet time before the day gets going that's perfect for self-improvement.
Yeah, mornings can be a really peaceful and focused time.
Right. So he developed this morning routine, which became the basis for the Life, SAVERS. Silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and journaling. These practices helped him overcome depression and get back on track.
So he actually used these practices himself before writing about them in the book.
Exactly. And one of the key things the book talks about is overcoming mediocrity. But it's not about comparing yourself to others. It's about choosing to stay the same, to not grow. Extraordinary success comes from constantly learning and evolving.
It's like mediocrity is a choice, not a state of being.
That's a great way to put it. The book goes on to discuss some of the most common causes of mediocrity. Things like not having a clear purpose in life, what the author calls isolating incidents, not having accountability, surrounding yourself with negative people, and simply not investing in your personal development.
These are all really important things to be aware of, for sure.
Absolutely. So the book emphasizes the importance of defining your life purpose, even if it's a simple one to start, and living in alignment with it. And it stresses that this purpose can change over time, which I think is really important. The book also mentions this idea that the ultimate purpose for all of us is to become the best versions of ourselves.
That's a powerful idea.
It is. And then there's this concept of isolating incidents, which basically means that we shouldn't underestimate the impact of our choices, even the seemingly small ones. It's about recognizing that who you are becoming is determined by what you do consistently. Your actions, over time, shape your future.
So even seemingly insignificant choices can have a big impact in the long run.
That's the idea. And having accountability is crucial too, especially when it comes to taking action. The book suggests seeking out supportive people and communities, like-minded individuals who can encourage you and keep you on track.
Yeah, having that support system can make a huge difference.
And when it comes to personal development, the book's message is pretty clear. Your success in life is directly linked to how much you invest in your own growth.
It's that inner work that paves the way for outward success.
Exactly. And that's where the Miracle Morning comes in. It's like a blueprint for dedicating time to that crucial personal development work.
So it's a system for putting all these ideas into practice.
Right. Now let's talk about that pesky snooze button. The book compares hitting snooze to choosing to do something you dislike over and over again. Like, why keep doing something that makes you feel bad? And to help you break that snooze habit, the book lays out a 5-step snooze-proof wake-up strategy.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more about this strategy.
Well, the first step is to set your intentions the night before. Decide what you want to accomplish the next day, and visualize yourself waking up feeling energized and ready to go.
So you're setting yourself up for success before you even go to sleep.
Precisely. Step 2 is to put your alarm clock across the room. I know it sounds harsh, but it's super effective.
It definitely forces you to get out of bed.
It does. And once you're up, step 3 is to brush your teeth right away. It gets you moving and helps you wake up.
I can see how that would be helpful. What's next?
Step 4 is to drink a full glass of water. It rehydrates you after a night's sleep and helps kickstart your metabolism.
So it's like you're giving your body a jump start.
You got it. And finally, step 5 is to either get dressed or hop in the shower. Both of those actions signal to your brain that it's time to start the day.
I love that this strategy is so specific and actionable.
It is. And the book also has some bonus tips for waking up, like using affirmations before bed and setting timers for your bedroom lights and heater. Creating the right environment is key.
Yeah, it's all about setting yourself up for success.
Now, here's something really important the book points out. It's the difference between your life situation and your life. Your life situation is all the external stuff, your circumstances, but your life is your internal world, your physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual well-being. And the book argues that your life is what gives you the power to change your life situation.
So it's like your inner state dictates your outer reality.
Exactly. And that brings us back to those life SAVERS. Remember, let's break down each one. The first S is for silence. This is all about creating some quiet time in your morning, maybe through meditation, prayer, reflection, or deep breathing. It's a chance to reduce stress, become more self-aware, and just find some inner peace before the day gets crazy.
Silence can be so powerful, but it's often something we don't make enough time for.
So true. And the book highlights meditation specifically, talking about both guided and individual meditation and all the proven health benefits. Did you know that lots of successful people meditate regularly?
I've heard that. I've been wanting to try it myself, but I'm not sure where to start.
Well, the book offers a really simple breathing technique. Inhale for 3 seconds, hold for 3, and exhale for 3. It's a great starting point.
Okay, that sounds easy enough. What's the next life SAVER?
The A is for affirmations. These are like positive statements you repeat to yourself, and they're super powerful for developing a success mindset. The book even uses an example of a really famous athlete who used affirmations to achieve amazing things.
So it's like you're programming your mind for success.
Yeah. The book explains that affirmations can actually reprogram your subconscious by repeatedly telling yourself who you want to be and what you want to achieve. And there's a 5-step process for creating effective affirmations that the book outlines.
Tell me about that. What are the steps?
It starts with figuring out what you really want deep down. Then you dig into why you want it so badly. Next, you define the person you need to become to make it happen. Step 4 is all about outlining the specific actions you'll take to reach your goal. The book stresses getting really specific about how often you'll do those actions and how much you'll do. And lastly, it suggests incorporating inspiring quotes and philosophies into your affirmations.
Wow, that's a really thorough process.
Right. It makes your affirmations so much more powerful.
What's the next letter?
V stands for visualization. And this is all about mentally rehearsing your goals and the steps you need to take to achieve them. Think of athletes visualizing their perfect game. Or like that story about that famous actor who visualized getting a $10 million check.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that. So it's like you're training your mind to see yourself succeeding.
Exactly. And the book gives you 3 easy steps for this morning visualization practice. First, you imagine your big goals in as much detail as possible, using all your senses. Then you fast forward and picture yourself achieving those goals and feeling all those amazing emotions that come with it. And lastly, you visualize yourself becoming the person you need to be to make it all happen. You see yourself taking all the necessary actions and enjoying the process.
That's really interesting. I can see how that would help build confidence and motivation.
Definitely. And up next is the E, which stands for exercise. The book emphasizes how important it is to get your body moving in the morning, even if it's just for a few minutes. Exercise boosts your energy, improves your health, and even makes you feel more confident and focused.
It's like a total win-win. And the book mentions yoga, right?
It does. Yoga is highlighted as a particularly beneficial practice for both your mind and body.
I can see why that would fit in so well with the Miracle Morning philosophy.
It does. All right, now we're on R for reading. And here the book suggests making a commitment to read at least 10 pages of personal development books every day. It points out that if you do that, you'll have read about 18 books in a year, which is pretty amazing. It's all about consistently feeding your mind with new knowledge and perspectives.
That's a lot of books. Do you have any tips for making the most of your reading time?
The book has a couple. One is to read with a specific goal in mind, like what do you want to learn from this book? And the other is to actively engage with a text, like underlining key points or making notes in the margins.
Those are good tips. I need to start doing that more. Okay, so what's the last life, SAVER?
The final S is for scribing, which basically means journaling. This is where you take some time to write down your thoughts, your feelings, your goals, your dreams, and any lessons you've learned. And the book says that looking back on your past journal entries can actually help you grow faster.
I like the idea of using journaling to track your progress and reflect on your journey.
Me too. And the book talks about different types of journaling, like gratitude journals and those that are more structured with prompts. And it mentions some specific journals too, like the Winner's Journal and the Miracle Morning Journal.
I might have to check those out. Okay, so we've gone through all the life, SAVERS. What happens next?
Well, the book acknowledges that committing to a full morning routine right away can feel overwhelming. So it suggests starting with a 6-minute miracle morning.
What's that? I'm intrigued.
It's basically a mini version of the full routine. You spend 1 minute on each of the life SAVERS practices, so it only takes 6 minutes total. It's a great way to dip your toes in and build momentum.
That's a great idea. It makes it much more approachable.
Now, the book also dives into the challenge of sticking with new habits. We often get stuck in our old ways, and it talks about that popular belief that it takes 21 days to form a habit, suggesting that while it's a good starting point, solidifying a new habit can actually take anywhere from 21 to 30 days, sometimes even longer. The key is to be patient with yourself and keep practicing.
Consistency is so important, isn't it?
It is. And to illustrate this point, the author shares another personal story. Remember how he was told he might never walk again? Well, he actually overcame his fear of running and ended up completing a 52-mile ultramarathon with his friends. It's an incredible example of what's possible when you push past your perceived limitations.
That's so inspiring. It shows you what dedication and commitment can achieve.
Absolutely. And finally, the book has one more powerful suggestion. It recommends sending an email to your friends, family, and colleagues, asking them for honest feedback on areas where you could improve. The book even provides a sample email you can use. It's all about seeking out constructive criticism, even though it can feel a little uncomfortable at times.
Yeah, but that kind of feedback can be so valuable for personal growth.
It really can. So as you can see, this book is packed with insights and strategies for transforming your life through your morning routine. It's all about setting intentions, developing positive habits, and becoming the best version of yourself.
It's a really compelling approach to personal development, that's for sure.
And the best part is, it's all within your reach. This book encourages you, our listener, to explore the power of intentionally starting your day, dedicating time to those life SAVERS, and unlocking your full potential. It's about recognizing that personal development is the foundation for success in all areas of life.
It's like a blueprint for creating a more fulfilling and successful life.
I love that. Well, we hope this deep dive has given you some new ideas to think about and maybe even inspired you to try out some of these practices yourself.
It's been a great discussion, Mike.
Thanks, Sarah. I've really enjoyed our conversation today. And to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us on the Learn English Lab. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
And keep learning.
Until next time. Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. You know, I was just thinking before we started recording, haven't we all had that feeling, that urge to constantly check our phones, scrolling endlessly, you know what I mean? And time just kind of flies by and you're like, wait, where did the last hour go? Well, today we're going to really dive into that. We're tackling digital addiction head on in this crazy, hyper-connected world we live in.
It's everywhere, isn't it? It really is. I mean, think about it. You pick up your phone to do one thing, and next thing you know, you're down this rabbit hole of, well, who knows what? It's wild.
Absolutely. And for this deep dive, we've got this really cool guide, actually. It's meant for people learning English at an advanced level. But it covers so much ground on digital addiction, from what it actually is to why it even happens to how it affects us and hopefully what we can do about it.
Yeah, it really lays it all out there, doesn't it?
Yeah. And today, we're basically pulling out the gems from this guide for you.
Yeah.
Trying to make it super clear and, understandable without overloading you with information.
Right.
Exactly. Kind of cut through the noise.
Right. So first things first. When we say digital addiction, what are we really talking about? What's the nuts and bolts definition here?
So at its core, digital addiction is when you're using digital devices, phones, tablets, computers, all that compulsively and excessively. But it's got to be to a point where it actually messes with your overall well-being.
So it's not just liking technology, it's affecting your life in a bad way.
Right, exactly. And the guide does a good job of breaking down some key words right off the bat, like compulsive. It means you're basically driven by this irresistible urge to do something. They use this example. He has a compulsive habit of checking his phone every 5 minutes.
Oh man, that's so relatable. I think we've all seen that, maybe even done that.
Yeah, probably. And then there's screen time, which is pretty straightforward. It's literally just the amount of time you spend staring at a screen. I mean, we hear all the time about managing our screen time, and the guide has this simple example. Excessive screen time can disrupt your sleep patterns.
Makes sense. And not just sleep, right? It affects so many things.
Totally. And then there's this other term the guide uses, chronic digital addiction. This is interesting because it refers to a long-term dependence on those devices. It's not just a phase, it's a real problem, especially with teens, the guide says. And chronic really highlights that it's ongoing and really ingrained.
So it's not just being online a lot, it's feeling trapped by it. And it's causing problems in other parts of your life. And speaking of problems, what are some of the the warning signs, the red flags that someone might be struggling with digital addiction?
The guide has a bunch of these, and I bet some will sound familiar, like feeling anxious or just uneasy when you're not online. Does that ever happen to you?
Oh, definitely. When you can't find your phone for a minute?
Totally. Or losing track of time while you're online. You meant to just quickly check something and suddenly, boom, an hour's gone.
Ugh. Just one more video trap.
Exactly. That gets me every time. Then there's ignoring real life stuff, putting off work, chores, you name it, because you're online. And it can even hurt relationships. If you're choosing your phone over spending time with people face to face.
It's you're physically there, but not really present.
Yeah. And then there's sleep, of course. Bad sleep quality is a huge sign, especially if you're on screens right before bed.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, those are all things that can really affect your happiness and well-being overall.
Yeah.
The guide even includes these phrases that honestly, I think a lot of people have thought or even said out loud.
Oh, yeah, those useful phrases. What are some of your favorites?
Like, I feel disconnected without my phone. It really captures that anxiety, you know?
Yeah, that feeling of being cut off. And this one's interesting too. Social media is my escape, but it's becoming toxic. Kind of a love-hate thing.
Totally. And then there's the aha moment. I didn't realize how addicted I was until I tried a digital detox. That's when it hits you.
Truth. That's often when you realize how deep the habit goes.
Yeah. And speaking of habits, the guide also has this grammar tip about using the present perfect tense for those ongoing behaviors. Like, I've been spending more time online than I'd like to admit. It emphasizes that it's been going on for a while, which fits with digital addiction being a continuous thing.
That's a good catch. It's subtle but important. I like that they included that.
So we're starting to understand what digital addiction is and how it shows up in our lives. But the big question is, why are these technologies so hard to resist in the first place? What makes them so engaging?
That's where things get really interesting. See, those tech companies, they design their apps and platforms to be super engaging, sometimes even addictive on purpose.
On purpose.
Yeah, pretty much. They use features like infinite scrolling, so you never really hit a stopping point. Then you've got those push notifications, always grabbing your attention, pulling you back in. And then there's the whole social validation thing, like likes and follower counts. It feeds into our need for connection and approval, you know?
It's like they're hacking our brains to keep us hooked.
Pretty much. It's all very calculated.
And speaking of brains, the guide talks about dopamine. Can you explain what that is and what role it plays in all of this?
So dopamine is like this chemical messenger in your brain that's all about pleasure and reward. When you do something pleasurable, like, I don't know, get on a post or win a level in a game, your brain releases dopamine.
Okay.
And that makes you feel good. So you want to do it again and again. The guide says on a post releases dopamine, making the experience addictive.
So those little bursts of validation we get online are actually messing with our brain chemistry, making us crave more. That's kind of scary.
It is a little bit, isn't it? And this leads to what they call a reinforcement loop. It's this cycle where you do something, let's say, check your phone, you get a reward, maybe get a new notification or a funny comment, and that makes you want to check your phone even more.
Like a dog getting a treat for doing a trick.
Yeah, sort of. And the guide specifically says that apps create a reinforcement loop through notifications and rewards. It's all by design.
So every time my phone pings, it's not just an alert, it's like a little reward for my brain, making me want to check it even more.
Exactly. It's like those slot machines, always giving you just enough to keep you pulling the lever.
And the guide has this great phrase: the brain becomes wired to expect instant gratification.
It's true, isn't it? We're so used to getting everything instantly online, it makes it harder to deal with things in real life that take more time and effort.
Definitely. And that brings us to the real-world consequences of digital addiction. It's more than just wasted time, right? It affects our well-being in deeper ways.
Big time. The guide lists some serious stuff, like higher risk of anxiety and depression.
Makes sense. All that comparison and FOMO on social media can't be good for you.
Exactly. Plus, lack of sleep. The blue light from screens really messes with your sleep cycle.
I've definitely noticed my attention span shrinking too.
That's another common one. Our brains get used to the fast pace online, so it's harder to focus on things that take more time and concentration.
Like reading a book, it feels like a chore now.
I know what you mean. And then there's social isolation, which is weird because we think of technology as connecting people.
It's ironic, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can have tons of online friends and still feel totally lonely.
Yeah, it's not the same. And it can also strain relationships in real life.
Like if your partner feels like you're ignoring them for your phone.
Exactly. And the guide emphasizes this cause and effect thing. They give examples like, because of his screen addiction, his grades have plummeted, and excessive use of digital devices leads to emotional disconnection.
It's like a domino effect. One thing leads to another. You know, it's so crazy how you can lose track of time online. The other day, I swear, I sat down to check one email and poof, an hour was gone. It felt like I was in a trance or something.
Yeah.
What is it about our brains that allows that to happen?
That feeling is wild, right? It's probably a few things working together. When you're really into something online, your focus narrows, almost like tunnel vision. You lose track of everything else. And the dopamine release we talked about can also warp your sense of time. So it feels like less time has passed than actually has.
So it's like a double whammy of hyperfocus and altered brain chemistry.
Pretty much. It's powerful stuff.
The guide also defines isolation and neglect in this context, which is helpful.
Yeah, isolation is being separated from social contact, and the example is, ironically, social media can lead to social isolation. And then neglect is failing to care for something properly, like she neglected her family while gaming late into the night.
These are real situations people face, which is sad but important to acknowledge.
Definitely. We touched on instant gratification earlier, but the guide dives deeper into its link with overstimulation. I want to get into that.
Let's do it. So, instant gratification is basically wanting pleasure or fulfillment right away, no waiting. And online platforms are designed to give you that instant reward, like a new message or a funny video.
It's like a constant stream of mini rewards, making it harder to engage with real-life stuff that takes more time and effort to pay off. Like the guide gives this example. I used to enjoy reading, but now I get bored after a few minutes. It's the instant gratification loop.
That's so true. And it makes me wonder, have we ruined our brains for slower, more thoughtful activities?
It's a valid question. I mean, it definitely impacts our ability to focus. And then there's overstimulation, which is basically being bombarded with too much sensory input. All those notifications and updates, it's like our brains are on overdrive all the time.
It's exhausting just thinking about it. And the guide even mentions burnout, specifically for digital stuff, saying that digital burnout is now common among remote workers.
It makes sense. When work and personal life all happen online, the boundaries get blurry and it's harder to disconnect.
It's like you're always on.
Yeah.
The guide also has this great section on key vocabulary, which I think is super important for understanding and talking about this whole digital addiction thing. What are some of the terms that stand out?
There are a bunch of good ones. Doom scrolling, for one. That's when you're just endlessly scrolling through negative or upsetting news online. The example they give is, he was stuck doom scrolling for hours.
Oh, I've been there. It's like a black hole of negativity.
It really is. And then there's FOMO, which stands for fear of missing out. It's that anxiety you feel when you think you're missing out on something everyone else is doing.
Like that feeling when everyone's posting from a concert you're not at?
Exactly. FOMO keeps people glued to their screens, the guide says. It's a powerful force. Then we got digital detox, which is basically taking a break from all your devices. The example is, I did a weekend digital detox and felt amazing.
That sounds like heaven. Maybe we should try that.
I'm in. There's also algorithmic addiction, which is basically being hooked by the recommendation systems on platforms like YouTube.
So the algorithm is choosing content for you based on what you've watched before, and then you get sucked in.
Exactly. YouTube's algorithmic addiction keeps viewers online for hours, the guide says.
I wonder if that's actually a good thing, though. I mean, you're getting content you like, but does it also limit you to seeing only one perspective? Like, does it create a filter bubble?
That's a great point, and I think the answer is, yeah, it probably does. The algorithm's goal is to keep you engaged, not necessarily to expose you to different viewpoints. So you might end up in an echo chamber just hearing the same opinions over and over.
Food for thought. So what's the last term?
It's disconnection anxiety, which is that feeling of stress or unease when you can't get online. Like, she experienced disconnection anxiety when traveling without Wi-Fi. It shows how dependent we've become on constant connectivity.
We've really gone through a lot. We've defined digital addiction, spotted the warning signs, talked about the psychology behind it, and looked at the consequences. Now, what does the guide say about solutions? Like, how do we actually create a healthier relationship with technology?
Well, the guide has some practical advice. One big thing is to turn off all those non-essential notifications. That constant buzzing and pinging keeps pulling you back to your phone.
Makes sense. Less distractions.
Right, and setting screen time limits for certain apps or for overall usage can help you be more aware of how much time you're spending online.
That sounds like it takes a lot of self-control.
It does. It's all about self-discipline, which the guide defines as the ability to control one's impulses. They say, digital balance requires self-discipline.
Easier said than done.
Definitely, but it's possible. Other things you can do are designate tech-free zones in your home, like no phones at the dinner table or in the bedroom. It creates boundaries.
I like that, like a sacred space.
Exactly. And you can try using grayscale mode on your phone, which makes the screen less visually stimulating and maybe less tempting.
Huh, interesting.
And finally, the guide really stresses replacing those digital habits with real-life activities, like spending time outdoors, picking up a hobby, or just connecting with people face-to-face.
So rediscovering the joys of the real world. Makes sense. And the guide also gives us some helpful vocabulary related to those solutions, right?
Yes. We already talked about self-discipline, but there's also mindfulness. It's about being fully present in the moment without judging your thoughts or feelings. The guide says mindfulness helps reduce compulsive device use.
So being more aware of your impulses and making conscious choices about how you use technology.
Exactly. And lastly, boundaries, which are limits that define healthy tech use. The example is setting digital boundaries is key to maintaining mental health.
Boundaries are so important for everything in life.
They really are.
We covered a lot in this deep dive. Digital addiction is a complex issue, and it's often by design. It affects our well-being in so many ways, from our mental health and sleep to our relationships and attention spans. It's not just about how much time we spend online, but how compulsive it is and the negative effects it has.
That's a great summary. Being aware of the signs, understanding why it happens, and actually taking steps to change our habits, those are all key to finding a healthier balance with technology.
Absolutely. And as always, we want to leave you with something to think about. Consider your own relationship with technology. Think about the good and the bad. Could you make even small changes that would lead to a more mindful and fulfilling life, both online and offline? This deep dive is really just a starting point, and we encourage you to keep exploring this topic on your own. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone. Welcome to the deep dive. You know, getting to an advanced level in English, that's a big deal, a real milestone.
It really is.
You've likely got the grammar mostly sorted, your vocabulary's pretty strong, but there's still this feeling sometimes, isn't there? That knowing English and like living it, they feel like different things.
Definitely.
So today, that's exactly what we want to dig into with you. Our whole goal here is to figure out how you can take that great foundation you've built and really properly weave English into your daily life.
Yeah, to get that extra fluency, that real confidence.
Exactly.
And to help us navigate this, we're diving into a really solid resource. It's called Real Life Practice Techniques and Resources for Advanced English Learners.
Okay.
And this isn't just, surface level stuff. It feels like a really well thought out guide. It's got effective strategies, actual practical exercises, even tips on the best tools out there. And it's all aimed specifically at learners like you at that advanced stage.
Right. And the core idea, the thing this resource really hammers home is this concept of real-life English practice. Now, this isn't about, banging your head against more grammar drills or memorizing crazy long lists of words.
Right, definitely not.
It's more fundamental. It's about shifting how you think, using English in ways that actually mirror how native speakers use it, day to day.
Getting beyond the textbook.
Totally. Thinking outside that box, using it authentically, interactively, contextually.
Unscripted, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And ultimately functionally. So, ready to really get into it, see how you can start living the language.
Absolutely. Let's do it. And the resource, it starts by laying out some fundamental principles, things to keep in mind for this real-life practice to actually work well for you.
Okay, what's first?
Well, the first big one is consistency over perfection. It sounds simple, but it's huge.
Right.
It's so easy to think you need these massive, hour-long study sessions. But the source says even short daily exposure, maybe just 15 minutes, that's often way more effective long-term.
That makes so much sense, doesn't it? It's like learning guitar or something.
Yeah.
Practicing a little bit every day seems to stick better than one huge, frustrating practice session once a week where your brain just quits halfway through.
Exactly. And building on that, there's this idea of contextual learning.
Contextual learning. Tell me more.
So the resource gives this great example. Instead of just memorizing the word negotiate from a list, it's much better to actually practice using it, say, in a pretend business chat. You start to really feel its meaning, its nuances, how it fits naturally.
Ah, okay. So you understand how it works in the real world, not just its definition.
Precisely. Words don't live in a vacuum.
Yeah.
When you learn them in context, you're not just memorizing, you're grasping their function, how they play with other words, when to use them, and the next principle. It's all about getting active. Output-focused practice.
Output focus. Okay, so not just taking English in, but putting it out.
Exactly. This really jumped out at me too. It's easy to just passively watch movies or listen to podcasts. And those things are good, don't get me wrong.
Sure, they have their place.
But this resource really pushes the importance of actively producing the language, actually speaking it, actually writing it, putting those words to work.
That's the difference between knowing about something and actually being able to do it, I suppose.
That's a great way to put it. Passive understanding versus active competence. You might understand tons, but actually saying it or writing it forces you to, retrieve words quickly, build sentences on the fly. It's a deeper level of engagement.
Makes sense. And the last core principle.
Feedback. It sounds obvious maybe, but it's critical.
Oh yeah, feedback is gold.
Totally. The resource stresses actively looking for it. From teachers, sure, but also language partners. Maybe even some of those apps that give corrections.
Right, because you don't always know what you don't know.
Exactly. Feedback helps you spot those blind spots, fix pronunciation, tweak grammar, just improve your overall style.
Okay, so those are the foundations. Consistency, context, output, and feedback. Got it.
Right. So keeping those in mind, let's dive into some specific real-life speaking techniques the resource suggests for you. First up is something called shadowing.
Shadowing. Okay, I've definitely heard of this, but maybe explain it for anyone who's new to the term.
Sure thing. So shadowing basically means you take a short bit of audio or video from a native speaker. Could be a news clip, a podcast snippet.
Okay.
You listen to a sentence, maybe two, then you hit pause and you immediately try to repeat exactly what you just heard.
Exactly. Like word for word.
Well, yes, the words, but crucially, you're also trying to mimic their intonation, how they pronounce sounds, the rhythm, the flow of their speech.
Ah, okay, so it's more than just repeating words.
Much more. It's almost like you're bypassing the analytical part of your brain and just getting your mouth and ears to learn the music of English, kind of by osmosis.
The music of English, I like that. And the resource says this is good for your accent and fluency.
Yeah, hugely beneficial for both. You really start to internalize how native speakers naturally link words, where they put the stress. It smooths things out.
Cool. Okay, what's the next speaking technique?
Next are language exchange meetups. The resource mentions platforms like Tandem, HelloTalk, Speaky. Are you familiar with these?
Yeah, I am. They're pretty clever, actually. Simple idea, really effective.
How do they work, basically?
Well, you connect with native English speakers who are learning your language.
Ah, okay, a swap.
Exactly. So you spend some time helping them practice your language, and then they help you practice English. It's a win-win. And like the resource says, it's great because you can practice casual chat or you can aim for more formal stuff, depending on who you find and what you need.
Right, that real back and forth interaction. Super important. Okay, after that, the resource suggests trying out role-playing scenarios.
Role-playing. Sounds a bit staged. Maybe awkward.
It could feel a bit weird at first, yeah. But it's actually incredibly useful for building confidence for specific situations you know you'll face.
Like what kind of situations?
Well, think about common things. A job interview, maybe giving a short presentation, calling customer service, even explaining a health issue to a doctor.
Okay. Yeah, those can be stressful.
Definitely. So the idea is to practice these dialogues, maybe with that language partner you found online, or even just by yourself. The resource even suggests recording yourself.
Recording yourself. Ooh, cringe factor.
Maybe a little.
Yeah.
But it's so helpful. You listen back, see where you hesitated, how clear you sounded. Then you can compare it to like a YouTube video of a native speaker in a similar situation. Helps you fine-tune things.
That's actually a really practical tip, like rehearsing for the real thing. I can see how that would make you less nervous. What's next?
Conversation clubs.
Ah, like groups that meet up just to chat in English.
Exactly. Could be online, could be in person. They're set up to be supportive places just to practice speaking. The resource even mentions Toastmasters specifically.
Oh yeah, Toastmasters is great for public speaking, right?
Precisely. So if that's one of your goals in English, it's a fantastic option. These clubs give you that structured chance to speak in front of people and get useful feedback.
Good call. And the last speaking technique is kind of funny sounding, talking to yourself.
Yeah, it sounds a bit strange, but it works. The resource gives a really simple example. Just narrate what you're doing during the day, out loud.
Like, I am now opening the fridge.
Pretty much. Okay, taking out the milk, pouring some of my tea. It feels odd at first, sure, but it's zero pressure. You're just practicing forming sentences, using everyday words, getting used to the sound of your own voice speaking English.
Okay, but wait, if you're just talking to yourself, couldn't you just be practicing mistakes? Reinforcing bad habits if no one corrects you?
That's a really good point, a valid concern.
So how do you avoid that?
Well, a couple of things. You can stick to narrating simple actions using grammar and vocabulary you're already fairly sure about. And you could also maybe occasionally record yourself doing this narration and then listen back. Maybe compare it to how a native speaker might describe the same thing. You can do a bit of self-correction that way.
Okay, that makes sense. Right, so we've got shadowing, language exchange, role-playing, conversation clubs, and even talking to yourself. Lots of speaking practice ideas.
Definitely.
Now, what about the other side of the coin? Listening skills. How can our listener actively improve those in real-life ways? The resource has tips here too, right? Starting with podcasts.
Absolutely. But not just having them on in the background. It emphasizes active listening.
What does that mean exactly? Active listening.
It means really engaging with it. The resource suggests choosing podcasts with different accents, maybe American, British, Australian. Get your ear used to the variety.
Good idea.
And, crucially, using transcripts if they're available, especially for tricky parts. And making a point to actually jot down interesting idioms or phrases you hear.
So, paying close attention.
Right. And maybe picking stuff that's just a little bit challenging for you. That comprehensible input plus one idea makes your brain work a bit harder to understand new things in context.
And the resource suggests some specific podcasts.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
The English We Speak from the BBC, Luke's English podcast, This American Life, and The Daily from the New York Times. A good mix to start with.
Nice. Okay, what else for listening?
And next up is the classic challenge, TV shows and movies. Without subtitles.
The final frontier.
Pretty much. But the advice is sensible. Don't just jump in the deep end. Start with English subtitles on.
Right.
Then try turning them off for maybe just 5 minutes at first. See how you do. Gradually increase the time as you get more comfortable.
Makes sense. Less scary that way.
Definitely. And again, the key is focus. Really listen. Note down phrases you don't get. Look them up later.
Got it. And the last listening technique, something about audiobooks.
Yeah, pairing audiobooks with the actual printed book.
How does that help?
Well, you follow along in the book while listening. It's great for reinforcing vocabulary, getting the rhythm and intonation, and hearing the correct pronunciation while seeing the word. It builds really strong connections between the sound and the text.
I can see that being really powerful. Okay, speaking, listening, check. Let's move on to writing. This can feel a bit more daunting for some people, I think.
It definitely can. But the resource has some really approachable ideas. First one is just journaling in English.
Journaling, like writing a diary.
Sort of, yeah. But it doesn't have to be super personal Dear Diary stuff. Just write about your day, your thoughts on something you read, your opinions, whatever.
Regularly.
Low pressure, exactly. And the key tip here is to use tools like Grammarly or Pro Writing Aid.
The spell checkers and grammar checkers?
Yeah, but they're more advanced now. They give you instant feedback, spot mistakes, suggest improvements. It's like having a mini editor. And if you journal consistently, you might start noticing patterns like, oh, I always make that mistake with prepositions. Then you can focus on it.
That instant feedback loop sounds really useful.
Okay, what's another writing practice?
Getting involved in online forums or Reddit.
Reddit. Really?
Yeah. Specifically, subreddits like English Learning are great, obviously. But even general ones like Rask Reddit or forums about your hobbies.
How does that help with writing?
Well, you're writing for a real audience, expressing opinions, maybe getting into little debates. Respectfully, of course.
Yes, important caveat on Reddit.
You're asking questions, answering questions. It's real communication, just written down.
Okay, I can see that. And for people who want to take it a step further, maybe share more publicly.
The resource suggests blogging or microblogging.
Blogging, like starting your own website.
Could be. Platforms like Medium or WordPress make it easy. Or even just using social media, writing thoughtful Instagram captions in English, posting short updates or opinions on Twitter.
Okay. So shorter form works too.
Absolutely. It gives your writing practice a purpose, maybe even connects you with people interested in the same things.
Nice. And the last writing point, email. Yeah, email correspondence. Especially crucial if you use English for work or want to.
Right. Professional emails have their own style.
Totally. So practice writing real emails if you can, to friends, teachers, contacts, or even just mock ones. Practice different scenarios, inquiries, complaints, scheduling things. It helps you nail that formal structure in polite language.
Okay, great. So we've covered a lot of ground speaking, listening, writing. What about reading? How can we sharpen those skills in a real-life way?
Well, the first tip is pretty fundamental, but really effective. Read the news in English. Daily, if possible.
Just pick up a newspaper or go online.
Exactly. Reputable sources like the BBC, The Guardian, NPR, Al Jazeera. Reading news articles consistently exposes you to good, often complex sentence structures, loads of current vocabulary.
And different writing styles too, I guess.
Definitely. The resource suggests actively looking for new words and maybe even paying attention to how sentences are built.
Good habit to get into. What about longer reading, like books?
Yeah, for people who enjoy that, joining an online book club that reads in English is a great idea.
How does that add value beyond just reading the book yourself?
Well, you read the book, obviously improving comprehension, but then you discuss it with others.
Ah, the speaking practice connection?
Exactly. You talk about the plot, the characters, the themes. It forces you to use vocabulary related to the book, articulate your opinions. It makes the reading more active and social.
Smart. And are there any specific tools for reading practice?
Yes. The resource mentions some interesting interactive platforms. Things like News and Levels, LingQ, Rewordify.
What do they do?
They often use adaptive technology. So they can simplify texts to match your current level. You can read an article, and if it's too hard, it adjusts it. Then you can gradually tackle more complex versions as you improve.
Oh, that's clever. Personalized reading.
Yeah, and LingQ, for example, has a huge library of real-world stuff, articles, dialogues, even book chapters, and lets you click on any word you don't know to get an instant definition right there in the text.
Very cool. These digital tools sound like a big help, and the resource mentions more of these, right? Beyond just reading.
Oh yeah, definitely. It highlights a whole range of immersive digital resources, like language immersion apps.
Such as?
Fluent is one it mentions. It uses real videos, movie trailers, music videos, news clips, and makes them into lessons. See the language used naturally.
Engaging. What else? AI tutors. Is that a thing now?
It really is.
Yeah.
It sounds futuristic, but tools like Ikaiwa AI, ChatGPT, even TalkPal AI, they can simulate conversations pretty convincingly now.
So you can just talk to an AI.
Pretty much. You can ask it questions, practice role-playing like those job interviews we mentioned, and some even give you feedback on your pronunciation, almost instantly.
Wow. That's kind of amazing, like a patient practice partner available 24/7.
Exactly. And without any human awkwardness or judgment.
True. Okay, what other digital resources? YouTube.
Definitely. YouTube is a goldmine. Channels like English Speeches, Speak English with Mr. Duncan, BBC Learning English. Tons of videos made for learners, covering grammar, vocab, culture, everything. Great for listening and visual learning.
Right. And then there was something surprising. Gaming.
Yeah, using video games for English practice.
How does that work?
Well, think about story-driven games. Games with lots of dialogue, lots of text on screen. Things like Life is Strange or The Last of Us.
Okay, so you're immersed in the story.
And you're constantly reading subtitles or notes, listening to conversations between characters. It's practice, but it feels like entertainment because you're engaged in the game.
Sneaky.
I like it. Okay, this is a fantastic toolkit. Now, the resource also talks about setting yourself specific challenges, right? To really push yourself.
It does. Real world challenges. The first one is pretty intense. A 30-day English only challenge.
Whoa! English only for a whole month. Yep. The idea is you switch everything digital to English. Your phone language, your browser, your apps, the news you read, the videos you watch, everything for 30 days straight.
That sounds hardcore, but I bet it forces incredible immersion.
Exactly. It's like creating your own immersion environment without leaving home.
Okay, what's a slightly less intense challenge?
How about a mock job interview series?
Tell me more.
You'd basically prepare for and practice answering common advanced interview questions. Record yourself answering them out loud.
And then?
Get feedback. Ask a teacher, a tutor, a fluent friend to listen and tell you how you did. It's super practical prep if you're aiming for jobs that need English.
Yeah, really targeted practice. What's the third challenge?
A presentation challenge.
So giving a presentation in English.
Exactly. Pick a topic you know well or care about. Prepare a short presentation and then deliver it.
To who?
Could be to friends, your language exchange group, even just record yourself, maybe upload it somewhere if you're brave. It pushes you to structure your thoughts and speak clearly and confidently.
Okay, those are some solid challenges. Now, a lot of people learning English need it for work. Does the resource cover applying these skills in professional settings?
It definitely touches on that. It stresses knowing the ins and outs of business English emails, the right format, tone, phrases for different situations like requests, complaints, scheduling.
Stuff.
Right. And also practicing presentations and reports in English. It even suggests watching TED Talks as good examples of clear structure and delivery.
Good tip. And what about specific job fields?
Crucial point. It emphasizes learning the specific English vocabulary for your industry. Whether you're in IT, medicine, engineering, whatever, knowing the right terms is key for sounding professional and confident.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have all these techniques, resources, challenges, but how do you stay motivated? Especially when you're advanced, progress can feel slower.
Yeah, motivation is huge. The resource has some good tips here too. One is using a learning journal.
We mentioned journaling for writing practice, but this is different.
Slightly. This is more about tracking your practice itself. Log what you did each day. Maybe you watched a film, did some shadowing, chatted with a partner. Note down new words or phrases. Reflect on what felt easy or hard. Set little goals for next time.
So it's about tracking the process and progress.
Yeah, exactly. Makes your effort visible, shows you how far you've come. That can be really motivating.
I like that. What else for motivation?
Setting realistic milestones. Not just get fluent, but smaller, concrete goals.
Like what? Give me an example for an advanced learner.
Okay, maybe. Have a 10-minute conversation on a new topic without major pauses, or watch a whole movie without any subtitles, or write a 1,000-word blog post with fewer than, say, 10 errors.
Specific and measurable. Got it.
Yes. Things you can actually achieve and check off.
And probably the most important one.
Celebrate the wins.
Yes, acknowledge your progress.
Absolutely. When you hit one of those milestones, or even just have a really good conversation, reward yourself somehow. It keeps things positive and reinforces the effort.
Definitely. Now, for learners wanting to tackle really meaty conversation topics, does the resource suggest any to really stretch their skills?
It does. It lists some great thought-provoking subjects that require more complex language. Things like climate change and sustainability.
Yeah, big one.
The role of AI in society, cultural differences and globalization, ethics in tech, mental health awareness, the future of education.
Wow, yeah. Those aren't small talk topics.
Not at all. They require nuanced vocabulary, expressing complex ideas, maybe debating different viewpoints. The resource suggests using these for discussion groups, journal prompts, even online comments. Really pushes your advanced skills.
Excellent suggestions. And finally, just to wrap up the resources part, it gives a summary of free versus paid options, right?
Yeah, a quick helpful overview. Like for speaking practice, you've got free options like HelloTalk or Tandem, or paid tutoring on iTalki or Cambly. Listening,
right.
Free stuff like YouTube and BBC podcasts, or paid curated content on Fluency. Writing, free options like Reddit and Basic Grammarly, versus paid pro writing aid for deeper analysis.
Makes sense.
Reading on free news sites or News and Levels, versus maybe LingQ Premium for more features. And vocabulary, free tools like Quizlet, maybe paid Archidex for serious flashcard users.
So something for every budget and learning style.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Lots of options out there.
Fantastic. Well, bringing this deep dive toward a close, it feels really clear that exploring this resource, real-life practice techniques and resources for advanced English learners, it really highlights a key shift, doesn't it?
It really does.
For those of you who've already got that advanced foundation, it's less about just learning English theory now, and much more about actively living it, weaving it into your actual life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about making that conscious choice to engage with English every day in all sorts of ways, through real conversations, getting lost in stories, maybe debating ideas, reflecting in the language.
Yeah. And the really empowering thing, which the resource points out, is you don't have to move to an English-speaking country to do this.
Not at all. That's such a key takeaway.
It really is, especially now with all the amazing digital tools and resources we have.
The possibilities are endless.
Right. If you just bring a bit of creativity, a bit of intention, you can build English into your daily rhythm no matter where you are.
Absolutely. It's totally doable.
So as a final thought for everyone listening, reflecting on everything we've talked about today,
Yeah.
think about your own routine, your actual day-to-day life right now. What's just one small thing, one really actionable step you could take, maybe even starting today, to make your English practice feel more genuinely real life? You know, I think we've all been there, right? That moment when you realize, okay, I've got to give this presentation in English. Maybe it's to colleagues from around the world. Maybe it's to really get a grasp on all the research coming out in English in your field. Or maybe you just know that being able to present well in English is a seriously valuable skill to have.
It is. And it's something that a lot of people want to get better at. It can feel intimidating, though, especially if English isn't your native language.
Totally. So what we're going to do in this deep dive is go way beyond just, basic tips. We want you to come away from this feeling like you've got the tools and the knowledge to actually feel confident and in control when you're presenting in English.
Right. And we've got a fantastic resource to help us do just that. We're going to be looking at a really comprehensive guide that's been put together specifically for English learners who need to give presentations.
Perfect. So our mission today is to pull out the most practical, immediately useful stuff from this guide. We're talking about everything from figuring out exactly why you're giving a presentation in the first place to nailing that Q&A session at the end, which can sometimes feel a bit scary.
Absolutely. By the end of this deep dive, you'll have a solid framework, something you can actually use to prepare for and deliver your next English presentation with, hopefully, a lot less stress and a lot more confidence.
So let's jump right in. And the guide starts off by asking a really fundamental question. Why are you giving this presentation? It seems simple, but it's so important.
It is, because that why is going to shape pretty much every decision you make about the presentation. The guide highlights 4 main goals that a presentation might have. It could be to inform your audience, to share new knowledge or data or insights.
Right. So think like a university lecture or maybe presenting research findings at a conference.
Exactly. Or your goal might be to persuade, to convince your audience to adopt a certain point of view, or maybe to invest in a project or an idea. This is super common in business context, right?
Oh, yeah. Like pitching a new product or proposing a change in strategy.
Now, this next goal is a bit less common in formal presentations, but it's still worth mentioning. It's to entertain. Think about a presentation at a company event or maybe a talk at a community gathering.
Right, where the main aim is to engage people and make them enjoy the experience.
And then the final goal that the guide mentions is to demonstrate. So this might involve showing how something works, explaining a process step by step.
Yeah, like a software demo or teaching someone a new technique.
And it really highlights how recognizing your primary goal, that why behind your presentation, is going to shape everything that follows. The structure, the content, even your delivery.
And it makes so much sense when you think about it in your own situation, right? It's like, okay, if I'm giving a presentation to my team about a new project, my goal is definitely going to be to persuade them that this project is worth doing.
Precisely. Or if you're presenting the findings of a research study, your primary goal is likely to inform your audience about what you discovered.
Okay, so we've thought about our goal. What else do we need to keep in mind in those early stages?
The guide emphasizes that you also need to think carefully about your audience. Who are you speaking to? What's their level of knowledge about the topic already? Are they experts? Students?
Right, because that's going to determine how much background information you need to give, how technical you can get with your language.
Exactly. You wouldn't use the same language and tone when presenting to a group of specialists as you would when presenting to a general audience. And on a practical level, you need to factor in how much time you have. Is this a 10-minute presentation or an hour-long lecture?
Okay, so we've got the goal, we've considered the audience, we've looked at the time we've got. What comes next?
The structure, right.
Exactly. And the guide advocates for that classic 3-part structure. Introduction, main body, conclusion. It's like the foundation of a good presentation, like a good story even, beginning, middle, and end. Makes sense. So how does that break down in terms of time?
The guide suggests aiming for a split that's roughly like this. 10% of your time for the introduction, 80% for the main body, and then 10% for the conclusion. Obviously, this is just a general guideline, but it gives you a good sense of proportion.
All right, so let's break those sections down in more detail, starting with the introduction. What are the absolute must-haves for a strong opening?
The guide breaks down the introduction to 4 key components, and it makes it really clear and actionable, which is great. So first up, you've got the greeting. This is where you acknowledge your audience, make them feel welcome.
Simple but important, sets the tone, right?
Exactly. Then it's all about you. A brief introduction of yourself. Let people know who you are, what your role is, why you're the one standing up there talking about this topic.
Okay, so we've welcomed everyone, we've introduced ourselves. What's next?
Now it's time to really lay it out. You need to clearly state the topic of your presentation. What are you going to be talking about? What's the main focus?
Right. And to tie it back to what we were talking about earlier, it's also essential to state the purpose of your presentation. Are you here to inform, to persuade, to entertain, or to demonstrate? Making that crystal clear for your audience right from the start is really helpful.
Absolutely. And then finally, to round off the introduction, you should provide a brief outline of the main points you're going to cover. This helps your audience follow along and know what to expect.
It's like giving them a roadmap for the presentation. Here's where we're going, and here's how we're going to get there.
Exactly. And the best part is, the guide even provides some really practical starter phrases for each of these components. It's like having a toolbox of useful language right at your fingertips.
Okay, let's hear some examples. What kind of phrases are we talking about?
Well, for the greeting, it suggests things like, "Good morning, afternoon, everyone." Nice and straightforward. Then, for introducing yourself, you could say something like, "My name is your name, and today I'm going to be talking about..."
And to state your purpose, you could use a phrase like, "The purpose of my presentation is to..." And then to outline the main points, something like, "I've divided my talk into 3 parts. First, we'll look at, second, we'll explore, and finally, we'll consider."
And to illustrate this even more clearly, the guide provides an example of a complete introduction on the topic of renewable energy. It's presented by someone named Anna, and it goes like this. "Good morning, everyone. My name is Anna, and today I'm going to talk about renewable energy. The purpose of my presentation is to discuss the importance of renewable energy for our future. I've divided my talk into 3 parts. First, we'll look at what renewable energy is. Second, we'll explore the benefits of using renewable energy sources. And finally, we'll consider how we can incorporate renewable energy into our daily lives."
That's a great example. Clear, concise, hits all the key points, and it's really helpful to see it all put together like that.
It is. It gives you a clear template that you can adapt to your own topic.
Okay, so the introduction is done. We've set the stage, we've introduced ourselves and the topic. Now it's time to dive into the main body of the presentation. This is where the real meat of the content is, right?
Absolutely. The main body is where you present your key arguments, your evidence, your examples, everything that supports your main message. And the guide really emphasizes that each point you make needs to be clear, concise, and supported by solid evidence.
This is where your research comes in, where you bring in data, case studies, real-world examples, whatever is most relevant to your topic and your audience.
Exactly. And to help you structure the main body effectively, the guide suggests using transition phrases to guide your audience smoothly from one point to the next.
I like that. It's like signposting for your listeners.
It is. And the guide provides some really useful examples like, "Let's start by looking at," or "moving on to my next point."
Or another important aspect to consider is...
Right. And then when you're bringing in those examples to back up your points, you can use phrases like, "for instance," or "to illustrate this further."
These phrases are so helpful for making those connections in your presentation and ensuring that your audience can follow your train of thought.
And to continue with that renewable energy example, the main body of the presentation might discuss different types of renewable energy sources like solar power, wind power, and hydropower. And then, to illustrate the concept of solar power, the presenter might show a picture of solar panels and explain how they convert sunlight into electricity.
It's about making those abstract concepts more concrete and relatable using those real-world examples.
Exactly. It helps people visualize what you're talking about and grasp the key ideas more easily.
All right, so we've laid out our key arguments in the main body, we've supported them with evidence, and now it's time for the final act, the conclusion.
The conclusion is all about bringing everything together, leaving your audience with a clear understanding of your main points.
And it's your last chance to really drive home your message, right?
It is. And the guide highlights 3 key things to do in your conclusion. First, summarize your main points. Briefly restate the most important things you want your audience to remember. This helps reinforce those takeaways.
And then depending on the goal of your presentation, you might want to offer a final thought, a call to action, or something to leave the audience pondering.
Precisely. If your goal was to persuade, this is your last chance to encourage your audience to take action. If your goal was to inform, you might end with a thought-provoking question or suggestion for further research.
And of course, it's essential to thank your audience for their time and attention. It's just good manners.
It really is. And it also brings a sense of closure to the presentation. And then, to open up the floor for discussion, you can invite questions from the audience. This shows that you're open to engagement and that you value their input.
And once again, the guide provides some really helpful phrases for all of this. For summarizing, you could start with something like, "To summarize the main points," or "In conclusion, we've seen that."
And then to thank your audience, a simple "thank you for your attention" is always appropriate.
And to invite questions, you could say, "Now, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have."
And if we go back to that renewable energy example, the conclusion might sound something like this. To sum up, renewable energy offers a sustainable, environmentally responsible, and increasingly affordable alternative to traditional fossil fuels. I encourage you to explore ways to incorporate solar, wind, or other forms of renewable energy into your own lives. Thank you for your time, and now I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
So that brings us to the end of the structure section. But the guide doesn't stop there. It goes on to provide a whole section of really useful phrases that you can use in your presentations.
It's like having a toolkit of pre-made building blocks for effective communication. And the guide categorizes them by function, which is so handy for finding exactly what you need quickly.
Okay, let's go through some of the key categories. So for starting your presentation, we've already touched on some of the phrases, but the guide also suggests things like, let's begin by, or I'd like to start by.
And then, for transitioning between different parts of your presentation, you could use phrases like, now let's turn our attention to, or next I'd like to discuss. These are great for guiding your audience and helping them follow your train of thought.
And when you need to give an example to illustrate a point, you can use phrases like, for instance, or to illustrate this point further.
And if you want to emphasize a particular point, you might use phrases like, it's crucial to remember that, or I'd like to highlight.
And then for wrapping up your presentation, we've already mentioned some options, but the guide also suggests phrases like, before I conclude, I'd like to briefly recap, or that brings me to the end of my presentation. Having these phrases at your fingertips can really help you to structure your presentation and deliver it more smoothly.
It's like having a script for those key moments. It can really boost your confidence.
Okay, so we've covered the structure, we've looked at some useful phrases. Now let's tackle a big one, pronunciation. This is something that a lot of English learners worry about, especially when it comes to presenting.
It is, and the guide acknowledges this right from the start. It normalizes those feelings of anxiety, which is really helpful in itself, but then it goes on to offer some really practical advice for improving your pronunciation and your overall fluency.
So, what are some of the key tips? Because I think we can all relate to feeling a bit self-conscious about our pronunciation sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. The guide suggests starting with the basics. Practice, practice, practice. Identify the words that you find tricky and focus on getting those right. The guide even mentions a couple of common examples like the words statistics and specific.
Oh yeah, those are definitely tongue twisters. And I think recording yourself speaking can be really helpful, even though it can feel a bit awkward at first.
It is, but it's such a valuable tool for identifying areas where you can improve. You might be surprised at what you hear.
I know I am. And another tip that the guide suggests is using tongue twisters to practice your articulation and fluency. You know that classic one, she sells seashells by the seashore.
That's the one. It sounds silly, but it really does help train your mouth muscles.
And the guide even includes a specific exercise for practicing the word presentation. It suggests breaking it down into its syllables, presentation, and then practicing saying it slowly at first and gradually increasing your speed.
It's a great technique for really getting comfortable with the sounds and the rhythm of the word.
Okay, so pronunciation is one area where people often feel anxious. Another one is visual aids, slides, diagrams, charts, those sorts of things. They can be so helpful in a presentation, but they can also be a source of stress.
And that's why the guide dedicates a whole section to using visual aids effectively. It starts by highlighting just how powerful they can be when used well. They can really enhance your message and make your presentation more engaging.
Absolutely. A good visual can really help to clarify a complex concept or bring data to life.
Exactly. But the key is to use them strategically, not just for the sake of it. And the guide provides some really solid tips for designing effective slides.
What kind of tips?
Well, first and foremost, keep it simple. Less is more when it comes to slides. You don't want to overwhelm your audience with too much text or too many visuals. Stick to bullet points for your key information and avoid using lengthy paragraphs.
It's easy to get carried away and try to cram everything onto your slides, but the guide really stresses the importance of white space and visual clarity.
It makes such a difference for your audience. And when it comes to visuals, choose images and graphs that are relevant to your topic and that help to clarify your points.
Right, and the guide actually gives a really nice example of a slide structure for a presentation about the benefits of renewable energy.
Yeah, it's really straightforward and effective.
Yeah.
The title of the slide is simply Benefits of Renewable Energy. And then underneath, there are 3 clear bullet points. Reduces pollution, long-term cost savings, and job creation.
Perfect. It's clean, concise, and it communicates the key information without being overwhelming.
Exactly. And remember, your slides are there to support you, not to be the main event.
Okay, so we've covered structure, phrases, pronunciation, and visual aids. Let's talk about something that probably affects every presenter at some point: nerves. Even seasoned speakers get nervous before a presentation. It's totally normal.
Absolutely. And the guide does a great job of normalizing those feelings of anxiety. It acknowledges that it's something that almost everyone experiences, and then it provides some really practical tips for managing those nerves and building your confidence.
What are some of the strategies it recommends?
Well, one of the simplest and most effective techniques is deep breathing. Taking some slow, deep breaths before you start can help to calm your nervous system and reduce those feelings of anxiety.
It's amazing how much of a difference that can make.
It really is. Another helpful strategy is to practice your presentation beforehand. You can do this in front of a mirror or with friends or family. The more familiar you are with the material, the more confident you'll feel when you're actually delivering it.
Rehearsal is always a good idea.
Always. And then there's a tip that might sound a bit cliche, but it can actually be really helpful. Focus on your message. Instead of getting caught up in your own anxiety, try to shift your attention to what you want to communicate to your audience.
Right. It's about getting out of your own head and focusing on connecting with your listeners.
Exactly. And the guide even includes a little affirmation that you can repeat to yourself to boost your confidence. It goes, "I am well prepared and I can deliver this presentation effectively."
It sounds a bit cheesy, I know, but positive self-talk can be surprisingly powerful.
It can. It's all about framing your mindset in a positive way.
Okay, so you've prepared your presentation, you've practiced it, you've taken some deep breaths, you've reminded yourself that you've got this. Now you're at the end, and it's time for the Q&A. This can be a tricky part for a lot of people, especially when they're presenting in a language that isn't their first language.
It can be, but it's also a valuable opportunity to engage directly with your audience and to address their specific questions or concerns. And the guide gives some really helpful tips for handling the Q&A effectively.
What kind of tips?
Well, it starts with some basic strategies for responding to questions. If you understand the question clearly, you can acknowledge it and then provide your answer. The guide suggests using phrases like, "That's a great question. The answer is."
Straightforward and to the point.
Exactly. But if you didn't quite catch the question, or if you're not sure what the person is asking, don't be afraid to ask them to repeat or clarify. The guide suggests saying something like, "Could you please repeat that?" Or, "I'm not sure I understand your question. Could you rephrase it, please?"
It's always better to ask for clarification than to try and answer a question you don't fully understand.
Absolutely. And if you genuinely don't know the answer to a question, it's perfectly okay to admit that.
Yeah.
You can say something like, "That's a really interesting question. I don't have that information right now, but I'd be happy to look into it and get back to you."
Honesty and transparency go a long way in a Q&A.
They do. And to illustrate these strategies, the guide gives a little example scenario where someone in the audience asks a question about the cost of installing solar panels. The presenter acknowledges that it's a valid concern and then provides a balanced answer that addresses both the upfront costs and the long-term savings.
It's a great example of how to handle a potentially tricky question with confidence and clarity.
Exactly. And the guide stresses that it's always better to be honest and upfront than to try to bluff your way through a question you don't know the answer to.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from understanding your purpose to structuring your presentation, from pronunciation tips to handling the Q&A. And to help you put all of this into practice, the guide includes some exercises at the end.
These exercises are designed to help you solidify your understanding and to actually practice using these techniques. And they're really well thought out.
Okay, so what kind of exercises are we talking about?
Well, the first one is all about practicing that all-important introduction. Remember those key elements we discussed: greeting, introducing yourself, stating your topic and purpose, outlining your main points.
Yes, those are crucial for setting the stage and engaging your audience right from the start.
Exactly. So this exercise provides a template with placeholders for you to fill in with your own information. It's a great way to get comfortable with those opening lines.
And it can be really helpful to write it out and practice saying it out loud a few times until it feels natural and comfortable.
Absolutely. And the second exercise is a bit more involved. It challenges you to create a short presentation on a specific topic. In this case, it's healthy eating.
Okay, healthy eating. That's a topic that everyone can relate to.
Exactly. And the exercise provides a clear three-part structure for the presentation. First, you need to explain the importance of healthy eating. Then you offer some practical tips for maintaining a balanced diet. And finally, you suggest some easy and healthy recipe ideas.
So it walks you through the entire process from start to finish.
It does, and it's a great way to practice putting all of these techniques together in a real-world context. You get to practice structuring your presentation, using transition phrases, incorporating visual aids if you want to.
And it's on a topic that's familiar and relatable, so you can focus on the delivery and the language without having to worry too much about the content itself.
Exactly. It's all about building that confidence and fluency.
All right, so we're almost at the end of our deep dive into this fantastic guide for giving presentations in English. And to wrap things up, the guide offers some final tips for success. And I really appreciate that these are all very actionable things you can actually do.
They are, and the guide emphasizes that, above all, practice is key. The more you practice giving presentations in English, the more comfortable and confident you'll become.
It's a skill just like anything else.
Exactly. It takes time and effort to develop. But the guide also reminds us that it's important to speak slowly and clearly, especially when you're presenting in a language that isn't your native language.
It's tempting to rush when you're nervous, but taking your time and enunciating clearly will make it much easier for your audience to understand you.
It will. And the guide encourages presenters to engage with their audience, make eye contact, use natural gestures.
That connection with your listeners can make all the difference.
It really can. And finally, the guide reminds us to be prepared for questions. Anticipate what your audience might ask and have some answers ready.
Even if you don't know the answer to every question, being prepared to handle those questions calmly and confidently will make you a much more effective presenter.
Absolutely. So there you have it. A comprehensive guide to giving presentations in English, packed with practical tips and actionable strategies.
I think we've covered a lot of really valuable ground here, and hopefully you're feeling a lot more equipped and empowered to tackle your next English presentation.
Remember, giving presentations in English is a skill that you can develop and improve over time. You've now got a solid foundation. You know how to structure your presentation, you've got some useful phrases in your toolbox, and you've got some strategies for dealing with those common challenges.
And as you move forward, try to apply these principles not just to formal presentations, but to any situation where you need to communicate clearly and confidently in English. Maybe think back to a past presentation and consider how you might approach it differently now. Or perhaps you have an upcoming presentation that you can start preparing for with these new tools in mind.
The most important thing is to keep practicing and to keep learning. And remember, you've got this.